After my brother died, I married my sister-in-law. Everyone thought I was spending my brother's money, monopolizing his wife, and bullying his son, doing whatever I wanted every day. However, in reality, I was working tirelessly for my nephew and serving as free labor for my sister-in-law. Before going to bed, I poured Makoto a glass of milk. He smashed it immediately. Anger surged from my heart, but all I saw was a line of subtitles, barrage comments. They've been around for years, and I've grown accustomed to them. The comments read, "Today is Father's Day anniversary. Makoto must miss his dad so much, which is why he especially dislikes his uncle." The female lead is crying outside. She's very sad. She doesn't want to betray her original husband but can't help but admit she likes her brother-in-law. She can only desperately suppress her feelings. However, watching these barrage comments, my heart remained unmoved. It's been 5 years. I've been working like a beast for 5 whole years. No matter what I've done for her and her mother, I still remain an outsider in this family. No matter how nice the comments are, I'm not interested in raising someone else's son anymore. Chapter 1. Looking at the shattered glass pieces scattered all over the floor, I turned and left. Makoto was still making a loud fuss, shouting, "Get away. Grandma said you're ambitious and want to seize my dad's property. If it weren't for you, my dad wouldn't have left me so early." I curled the corner of my mouth and smiled. "As you wish. I'll leave tonight." The barrage erupted in chaos. "Please don't." Male lead. The child's personality is inherited from his mother. He's cold on the outside but warm inside. Don't quarrel with a child over trivial matters. Forget it. This male lead is the female lead's simp. How could he bear to leave? In the end, he still stayed obediently to clean up the mess. The comments frustrated me because I couldn't argue with what they were saying. 5 years ago, my twin brother fell seriously ill. He watched helplessly as Makoto, who was just 6 months old, was about to lose him. He held my hand tightly, tears in his eyes, and said, "Brother, back then you almost had both legs crippled. I saved you. At that time, you asked how you could repay me. I didn't respond. Now, brother, I'm begging you to take care of Makoto. Can you?" Instinctively, I wanted to refuse, but then the barrage appeared. They said I was the male lead of this world, and my sister-in-law Willow was my destined female lead. The female lead had a deceased lover, Victor, who was my brother. After he died, Willow and I grew closer, eventually becoming a perfect couple, but I didn't want to bear the guilt of coveting my sister-in-law, so I fled in panic. However, Willow collapsed. My parents also fell apart. One by one, they got sick. Later, my parents earnestly persuaded me, saying that without me, the family would fall apart. They asked me to support Willow and help manage the company my brother left to them. My thoughts returned to the present, seeing me leave behind a mess. Willow hurriedly grabbed my sleeve. She had delicate features, crescent-shaped eyebrows, eyes like autumn waters, silver tassel earrings hanging from her earlobes, and the cuffs of her floral chiffon dress partially covering her slender arms. She frowned and said, "Why are you being so irresponsible? You didn't clean up the glass. What if Makoto steps on it?" Her voice carried a hint of reproach and a commanding tone. Her aggressive attitude annoyed me. The barrage, however, all sided with Willow, discussing, "The female lead is right. No matter how angry the male lead is, he shouldn't leave the child and broken glass together. What if Makoto gets cut?" The female lead's love is conflicted. On one hand, she vowed to protect this family in place of her ex-husband and is committed to raising her son. On the other hand, she has feelings for the male lead who has endured so much over the years. It's making me uncomfortable to watch. Watching the barrage continuously defend the mother and child, my previously calm heart turned into one of disgust. I pushed Willow away and said, "I really don't want to take on this responsibility. I'm not interested in doing anything for you and your son anymore." She looked displeased and said, "Why are you saying this? Did your mother-in-law say something?" I laughed and said, "Yeah, she did. She told Makoto that I'm ambitious and after my brother's property." She snorted and said, "You're a grown man. Why are you going against your own mother?" I didn't bother to explain further. Chapter 2. I remained expressionless and said, "My brother saved me, and I've repaid him in 5 years. Makoto is about to start elementary school. He shouldn't need adults to worry about him anymore. In the past, I took meticulous care of both mother and son. My brother entrusted the company to my sister-in-law, asking her to look after it while also leaving the two of them in my care. This meant that I not only had to take care of them in our daily lives but also had to handle any issues at the company immediately when they arose. Every morning, I had to prepare breakfast for the mother and son like a servant, hurriedly drive Willow to the company, and take Makoto to school. Then, I returned to the company to work as unpaid labor, serving Willow tirelessly. On weekends, I had to shuttle Makoto to swimming lessons, piano classes, and badminton practice multiple times a day. On top of that, I had to endure my mother's constant nagging. Once, when a friend asked me if I wanted to start a business together, my mother quickly called me, saying that without me, our family would fall apart and that I shouldn't get involved with outsiders. I had to stay and help Willow and Makoto manage the company my brother left them. It was exhausting. Seeing the stress and fatigue etched on my face, Willow's expression softened slightly. She said, "Otherwise you hire a nanny." The barrage comments exploded instantly. Discussing, "Oh my god, the female lead has a trastorno obsessivo compulsivo de limpieza. She really dislikes interacting with strangers. This is a huge sacrifice for the male lead." Exactly. Although she also dislikes her mother-in-law, she has no choice. Her mother-in-law lost her beloved eldest son and sees her younger son healthy, and marrying his widow must make her feel unbalanced. Someone else commented, "The male lead just needs to hang in there. The light is at the end of the tunnel. Once the tough part is over, it's all sweet moments." Looking at these comments, I was filled with confusion. Am I really such a despicable person? Can a cut wound truly heal? Even if it does, can I ignore all these ugly scars? I looked at Willow in front of me. She had peach-like cheeks, almond-shaped eyes, a straight and elegant nose bridge, and an overall lively and charming demeanor. She used to deeply attract me. Now, I moved my gaze away from her face and calmly said, "Let's get a divorce. Once you sign the papers, we'll proceed with the divorce formalities." A flash of surprise crossed Willow's eyes, but she quickly regained her dissatisfied expression and said, "What about Makoto? You promised your brother you'd take good care of him." I replied, "The child is growing up and becoming more thoughtful. He might not want to see me every day." Willow gently shook my arm in a coquettish manner and explained, "George, if Makoto is making you uncomfortable, I apologize. You know today is Victor's Memorial Day. Grandma is complaining, and the child didn't mean any harm. Rarely did she show any tenderness, but she still thought I was just acting on impulse. After all, I had endured my mother's behavior for so many years. In her eyes, as a man, I should be more magnanimous and endlessly tolerant of them. I shouldn't bring up divorce with her, but this time, I was truly determined." Suddenly, a voice came from behind. "George, you damn kid, what are you freaking out about?" It was my mother's hysterical shouting. When I turned around, it was Makoto secretly holding up his phone, filming me and Willow. I was speechless. The woman on the other end of the phone, like a furious lioness, scolded me. "Willow, make him sleep on the sofa tonight. No, kick him out to sleep on the streets. He's truly ungrateful, taking advantage of Victor's legacy and still not satisfied. I don't believe that if he leaves the Wong family, he'll have any good days." To honor Victor's dying wish to take care of our parents, Willow had always followed our mother-in-law's wishes. She watched helplessly as I packed my luggage, as if still waiting for me to make the first move to reconcile. The barrage went wild, flooding the screen with comments. "What's going on? The male lead shouldn't be this stubborn. He didn't receive much love growing up, making him timid and insecure. He never rebelled against his family to protect his kind-hearted brother." Female lead, quickly act cute with the male lead. "He doesn't know that you specially make soup for his stomach illness, and he doesn't know that you don't even eat the chocolates he gave you." Male lead, please comfort the female lead. Pamper her more. She's conflicted and doesn't dare to show she likes you in front of her mother-in-law and son. As a man, you should be more accommodating to her. Accommodating. Men just have to accommodate women. Why? Should people who are used to enduring have to tolerate unconditionally? I don't think it should be like that. Even stubborn people have a bit of spirit. No one will wait around forever. Even if the barrage says Willow loves me deeply, I'm not interested in her anymore. I returned to my room that night to pack my things. Willow didn't say anything else. She just sat quietly in the living room all night. Chapter 3. Early in the morning, my mother came running over again, pointing her finger at my nose and scolding me. "Didn't you say you were getting a divorce? Go now. As soon as the civil affairs office opens, get your divorce immediately." Willow hesitated and said, "Mom, this is between me and George." My mother cut her off directly. "If it weren't for your brother being gone, what right does he have to marry you? Victor is such a fool, taking in such an ungrateful waste, offering his wife and child. He has no real abilities and is always eyeing his brother's possessions. Why is it that while Victor suffered a great misfortune and died from his illness, he's still alive and well, sleeping with his brother's wife, bullying his brother's child, and spending his brother's money? He's truly a petty person taking advantage. George, if you have the guts, get a divorce. Don't mess around here." I was speechless and replied, "I never said I wasn't getting a divorce." She gritted her teeth and said, "Then get out quickly. Also, don't even think about your brother's property. That's all left for Makoto, my grandson. You can't take any of it." I laughed and said, "Give it all to him. Make sure none is left for me. Even if some is left, I won't accept it." She was really joking. With that half-dead company, getting divorced from me would probably turn it into a liability. Who cares about that? Willow knew that her mother-in-law also had a weak heart, so she just kept her head down and remained silent. Makoto, holding his grandmother who was defending his mother, glared at me fiercely and said, You made grandma cry. You're a bad person. Looking at this little boy who had been high maintenance, high consumption, and moody since he was in swaddling clothes, I suddenly felt a great sense of relief. Finally, I wouldn't have to take care of him anymore. Without many words, I signed the divorce agreement and turned to leave. Willow stopped me and asked, "Where are you planning to go?" She knew I was single and had nothing in the city. Her eyes welled up, and she pressed her lips together, softly asking, "Mom is angry. She's been dreaming about your brother recently and feels sad. Can you come back after some time?" I refused and told her, "Willow, once the bow is drawn, there's no turning back. We'll go our separate ways and pretend we never met." After saying that, I didn't look at her again. Nor did I look at the woman who only called me husband when she was affectionate at night. Nor did I look at the child who easily got food allergies and needed me to arrange his diet, or the mother who only gave birth but didn't raise him, leaving with nothing on me. I took the subway for an hour and a half and arrived at a villa in the northern part of the city. The barrage comments were curious, saying, "How did Willow manage to get this villa? She never pays George a salary because of her mother-in-law." The male lead divorced too impulsively. A female lead like her, being a wealthy and beautiful woman, it's not hard for her to find someone to marry. Just don't end up crying and begging for forgiveness later. Someone else commented, "Actually, you can't blame the male lead when his biological mother got this far. Which men could endure it? The evil mother-in-law is the biggest obstacle between them. She hasn't logged off, so the protagonist's relationship can't develop too quickly, or the supporters of the original couple will go crazy," another person said. But the female lead always hides everything inside, making the male lead guess. "I'm worried he'll lock his heart away from love and refuse to reconcile," another replied. "No way. The male lead loves the female lead deeply. Besides, he still owes his brother a life." I quietly looked at the skyrocketing stocks on my phone. I smiled without saying a word. I graduated with a degree in finance, and these years, none of my investments had ever lost money. I'm honest but not stupid. With so many resources in the company, how could I not keep a fallback plan? The people in the barrage kept saying Willow loved me and that through day-to-day interactions, she would fall for my simp-like devotion. Little did they know, I had never felt that way. Only in the third year of our marriage, we were involved in a car accident while going out together. Without thinking, I instinctively turned the steering wheel, shielding her beneath me. In my dazed consciousness, she held me tightly, and I heard her heart-wrenching cries, "George, wake up. What will I do if you're not here?" However, later when I came to, I saw her staring at my brother's memorial photo for a long time. The barrage commented that she felt her heart starting to waver, feeling like it was a betrayal to my brother. I didn't know whether to feel happy or worried. I never intended to steal my brother's woman, but fate had brought us together, as if some irresistible force was at play. That night, I slept restlessly. I had a long dream. I dreamed I had returned to my childhood. Chapter 4. I was the child who wasn't favored in the family. When my mother gave birth to Victor and me, she had a difficult labor and nearly died on the operating table. After I was born, my brother had a congenital heart disease, while I was perfectly healthy. At the same time, my father's business ran into trouble. My mother blamed everything on me, believing that I had absorbed too many nutrients in the womb, causing my brother's poor health. She thought I was the reason he suffered and that I affected my father's business prospects. She named my brother Victor, hoping he would remember the family's mission and become the pillar of the Wong family. Everything I did was supposed to make way for Victor. Before I turned 1, I was sent to the countryside to be cared for by my grandmother. My aunt resented having an extra mouth to feed and often beat and scolded me. With my grandmother getting older and my uncle being a quiet man, my young self became timid and insecure. During the new year, my mother rarely brought Victor home. He wore a little suit and black leather shoes, looking like a tiny gentleman. I hid behind the door to sneak a peek. Victor placed a colorful candy in front of me and said, "You're George's little brother, right? I'm your brother. I'll protect you from now on." I nervously accepted it. Just as I was about to unwrap a pink candy, my aunt's son snatched it away. Victor wanted to help me reclaim it, but before he could speak, he clutched his chest in pain. My mother slapped me to the ground without any reason, yelling, "What did you do to your brother?" There was no cause. My baby tooth was knocked out onto the ground, and I spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. My mother covered Victor's eyes, saying, "Don't look. You'll have nightmares tonight." Victor brushed her hand aside and handed me a tissue to wrap the tooth. He said, "I'm sorry. Mom was just too worried about my health." This was the first time someone in the family apologized for my suffering. Naturally, I developed a slight fondness for my brother. After returning home, Victor asked my mother to send me his 8/10 new clothes and backpack. I was very happy. Finally, I didn't have to wear patched-up old clothes anymore. It wasn't until high school, after my grandmother passed away, that my parents brought me back home. I was timid, insecure, and lacked proper upbringing. Completely unlike Victor, who could confidently ask for anything from them. I also couldn't, like him, smile brightly and cheerfully at my childhood friend, Willow. Ding-ling-ling. A harsh ringtone jolted me awake from my sleep. It was Willow calling. Her voice was low, as if she hadn't rested well. She asked, "George, where did you put the new earrings you bought me?" I was about to answer when I saw the barrage comment. Oh my god, the female lead loves him so much. Even though she's wearing earrings, she's still asking where they are. She's probably looking for an excuse to act cute with the male lead. All she needs is for him to comfort her. So I paused and said, "Throw them away. Buy new ones yourself." After a while, she realized and asked, somewhat aggrieved, "George, are you still mad at me?" Facing her question, I seemed uninterested. She continued to mumble, Makoto doesn't like store-bought buns. Can you come back?" Before she could finish, I decisively refused. "I can't," she replied. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you, but Makoto is used to the breakfasts you make." I was speechless and said, "Willow, habits can change. You're his mother. Whatever he likes to eat, you just make it for him. When my brother was around, weren't you the one cooking? How come now it's such a big deal? Also, if you can't find something later, don't call me. I'm very busy." Willow fell silent. The barrage rushed to help her, commenting, "Male lead, please don't be so heartless to the female lead. She waited for your call all night and couldn't sleep at all. She truly loves you but fears betraying her promise to always love Victor. Please don't push her away." How boring. What is true love? Does something that cannot be felt even exist? Is love that cannot be felt still love? I understand the world through my senses, and I judge right and wrong based on likes and dislikes. If something is unknowable, then it is unknowable. Since it is unknowable, based on personal interests, one should deny its existence. Otherwise, anything can be considered true, leading to judgments that are detrimental to oneself. People might even deceive themselves to fill the inner void. Clearly, she was indifferent, yet I still imagined that she was just slow to warm up and uncommunicative. And deep down, she still loved me. This is unacceptable. Can you love someone and just watch them bear all the burdens alone? Can you endure their selfless sacrifices without expecting anything in return? Whether it's my mother's hysterics or Makoto's mischievous antics, Willow has never stood by my side. I've never experienced Willow's feelings. Naturally, I couldn't perceive any emotions she had for me. However, I had witnessed Willow's love for Victor. Back then, to be with my brother, she disregarded her father Lu's opposition. Even if it meant cutting ties with the Lu family, she was determined to marry into the Wang family. After marriage, she wholeheartedly devoted herself to the family, becoming a dutiful wife for my brother. The difference was simply night and day. Chapter 5. Shortly after hanging up the phone, a kindergarten teacher approached me again. She asked, "George, you usually prepare Makoto's lunch. Didn't you bring it today?" Makoto inherited his weak constitution from Victor, making him susceptible to many food allergies. To help him with his meals, I painstakingly consulted numerous experts and developed a personalized menu for him. Calmly, I responded, "Teacher Maria, Makoto isn't my biological son. I've divorced his mother. So please don't contact me if you have any issues." The barrage erupted with comments. "Please, male lead, Makoto can't eat cafeteria food recklessly. Last time he ate a pastry with peanuts, he almost didn't make it out of the ICU. Makoto must be right beside his teacher." Hearing my words, he angrily snatched the phone and scolded me. "You deliberately abandoned me and Mom to use psychological tactics to force Mom to beg you." He probably couldn't articulate such logical sentences on his own. These words must have been taught by my mother. However, I've been taking care of Makoto for 5 years. Even though he's a child with no blood relation to me, I've been dedicated and diligent, fostering a paternal love to care for and educate him. Even a stone should be softened by such care. Yet, he could be provoked with just a few words. The barrage, seeing the angry Makoto, furiously criticized me. "The male lead is so cold and heartless. Is every man this indifferent? Just divorced and already treating the child like a stranger, using the child as leverage. I really can't stand such a male lead. It would have been better if his biological father hadn't died." Some even defended me. "Isn't your father no longer a man? He's not his biological son and has always been so domineering. After raising him for 5 years, the child still has such a rebellious attitude. If I could tolerate it, I'd call him a turtleman." And those who support the original couple, constantly saying the male lead is trying to seize his brother's woman and property. Why isn't anyone pointing out that his brother is morally manipulating him, forcing him to take care of things at his brother's dying wish? They say he's timid and greedy, using double meanings for everything. Right. For the first time, someone in the barrage was defending me. For a long time, they've been complaining that my fate is too good, my abilities mediocre, and my personality unlikable. Yet I've become the male lead who picks the female lead's love, something to be grateful for. However, from beginning to end, no one asked if I was willing. Even a humble person like me wants to control my own destiny. I spoke. Makoto, after all these years, whether you think I'm pretending or not, did I treat you like my own son? Did you ever suffer even a little because of me? You just like to seek attention, pretending not to know and finding faults with me. From now on, you don't need to seek attention with me. I'm not your father, and you don't need to call me. If you have something to say, go home and cry to your mother. After finishing my morning routine, I went to pick up a tailored suit. Striding confidently, I walked into the Sue Group headquarters. Inside the office, Anna greeted me with shining eyes, saying, "George, you're finally here." The barrage exploded upon seeing Anna's elegant and graceful appearance. What's going on? Did I miss an important plot twist where a more beautiful character appeared than the female lead? Holy cow. How does the male lead know her? I'm so jealous. I looked at Anna. Compared to 12 years ago, she had transformed completely. Her eyes sparkled with a gentle light, and a faint smile graced her lips. Anna was the younger sister of my grandmother's neighbor. When we were young, she was always obedient, following me around. My mother often invited me to her home for meals. After graduation, she started a business with her boyfriend, initially going smoothly. Later, I accidentally learned from my mother that her boyfriend had embezzled all the company's funds and fled, leaving her with a mountain of debt and a messy situation to deal with. In this moment of despair, I remembered the kindness she and her mother had shown us. Using some information and intelligence the barrage had mentioned, I provided her with all the intelligence and advice I had gathered, helping her turn the company around step by step, even multiplying the company's assets several times over. She was very grateful and wanted me to co-manage the company with her. However, I was concerned it might affect the plot, so I never agreed. Throughout my life, I've been unlucky. I could only contact her from the shadows, not wanting anyone to notice any secrecy. Back then, I wasn't ready to marry Willow. Yet, it felt like an invisible hand pushed me into the marriage, thrusting me into a relentless tide that might change the course of the story. Now, I faced it without fear. Chapter 6. Anna wasn't just making polite small talk. She almost immediately began introducing me to the company's operations after finishing our meal. I have a good aptitude for mathematics. When I returned to live with my parents during high school, I surpassed Victor in my very first exam. Seeing her precious son upset, my mother slapped my face hard. Victor quickly intervened, saying he was useless, wasting the family's money, not learning anything, and worse than his countryside-raised brother. He handed me a newly bought exercise book and said, "George, study hard for me. Our parents' company will rely on you in the future." I hadn't received much love from my family, so for a little sweetness, I was willing to take any risk. I took the initiative to tutor Victor, trailing behind him and Willow like a loyal lapdog. When applying to university, due to his health issues, he asked if I could continue staying by his side. Thinking about the new clothes and shoes my brother had given me, and how he had defended me many times in front of our parents, coupled with Willow's rare expectant look in her eyes, I inexplicably agreed. Seeing me lost in memories and dazed, Anna poked my arm with her hand, just like she did when we were kids. I pinched my temples and didn't meet her gaze. Anna didn't mind and said, "It's okay, everything will be fine." She knew about my unbearable past in my original family and knew that I had spent the past few years in a daze after marrying Willow. I replied, "Thank you, Miss Sue. I'll do my best." Living with Willow and her son for the past 5 years, I had developed a habit of being busy. However, being busy for others is entirely different from being busy for oneself. Even though both involve effort, the sense of value gained from spending time on others is often very low because you're not expecting any return. The less you expect something in return, the more others see you as a cheap tool. It's different now. The more projects I handle, the more returns I get. Once, if I had any intention of wanting a return, my mother would question if I was planning to seize my brother or Makoto's inheritance. However, I was just trying to claim what belonged to me. How could that escalate to such a fallacy? Now, I'm extremely busy and have no time to care about what's happening in the Wong family. After obtaining the divorce certificate, Willow felt an unreal sensation. George had been gone for over a month. The house, once orderly, became messy. She hired servants, a nanny, and a butler. But Makoto was too picky. He wouldn't eat this or that and loved throwing tantrums. He would smash bowls at the slightest disagreement. Willow remembered that before, it was always George who took care of Makoto's meals and daily needs. Meanwhile, her mother-in-law would constantly console the well-behaved grandson while complaining non-stop. She said, "It must be George who spoiled this child, abandoning the mess and being so inhumane." Willow's mind flashed with images of George's helplessness. In this family, if he dared to scold Makoto or hit him, mother-in-law Wong would argue endlessly with him. She also felt that her son shouldn't be subjected to her stepfather's punishments. Now, the kindergarten teacher kept complaining every few days, saying Makoto liked to snatch classmates' art projects and would cry non-stop if denied. Willow asked, "Was he always like this?" The teacher replied, "Not really." When Makoto's father was alive, he often brought him a full pack of toys and many impressive art projects, and he told him stories from Journey to the West and Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Makoto would bring these to class to share. His classmates envied him so much that they couldn't wait to get their hands on his toys. He also enjoyed the admiring looks from others. Willow's eyebrows drooped. She never knew that George had done so much for Makoto. Loud slaps echoed through the room. Willow rushed in. She saw Makoto crying loudly, pointing at his grandmother and shouting, "Bad grandma, why are you hitting me?" Mother-in-law Wang, feeling guilty, called his name tenderly. She said, "Makoto, Grandma didn't do it on purpose. But how could you say something like asking me to bring George back?" Mother-in-law Wang despised her younger son for taking the place of the eldest son and was more worried about other men taking advantage. Under the guise of caring for her grandson, she moved into the son's house, always watching them closely. Half an hour ago, the precious grandson wanted to hear a bedtime story. Mother-in-law Wang sat by the small bed, put on her reading glasses, and began reading children's books word by word. She read slowly, with a monotonous and stiff tone. Unable to capture the excitement and passion that George did, Makoto became impatient. He was annoyed with the long-winded stories. Since his grandmother moved in, she had driven away several nannies, and the food had become increasingly unappetizing. Even the stories he used to boast about in kindergarten were now stammering and halting. As his temper flared, Makoto pressed his lips together and complained to his grandmother, "It's all your fault, getting George to leave and making me embarrassed." George was a trigger for mother-in-law Wang. She exploded like a bomb, cursing, "Have you forgotten who your real father is? Don't you know how much he contributed to ensure you can smoothly inherit the family business? Ungrateful brat. How could Victor have a son as heartless as you?" After venting her frustration, mother-in-law Wang acted as if nothing had happened, apologizing to Makoto and hugging him, kissing him dozens of times. Willow felt very angry. They were all family. So how could George really divorce her over such a trivial matter? It ruined the entire family's living order. Was he really willing to abandon his biological brother's son and leave his mother unattended? Being a daughter-in-law is not easy either. She had to watch her mother-in-law's mood every day. Why couldn't George be more magnanimous and tolerate her and the child's little temper tantrums? Chapter 7. At the end of the workday, a red Ferrari parked at the company entrance. Willow leaned against the car, wearing a white high-waist mermaid skirt. Her makeup was impeccable, her features striking, with delicate eyelids and an alluring presence that was almost blinding. A male colleague exclaimed, "Which family's girl is she? So impressive." I pretended not to see and turned to leave. However, Willow approached and stood in front of me, frowning, saying, "George, you're being too much, treating me and Makoto like this. Do you want to disturb Victor's peace in the afterlife?" She didn't want to throw a tantrum, but George used to worry a lot about her and her son. Moreover, whenever his brother was mentioned, he felt guilty and compromised in every possible way. I didn't know what Willow was thinking. Seeing her attempt to morally manipulate me, I felt nothing but disgust. The barrage comments kept reminding me, "Your brother saved you, and you slept with his woman. If you weren't the male lead, Willow wouldn't have lost her beloved husband." They made me feel grateful and warned me not to be ungrateful. Others commented, "What is the male lead doing?" The female lead gave away, "Just take it." I don't know how George got involved with Sue Group, but his elbows don't bend outward, and I don't know what he's fussing about. He doesn't take care of his own company but instead runs around working for others. Even if we take a step back, if Wang Group doesn't pay him a salary, wouldn't that money still end up with his Wang family? He helps Makoto well, but will Makoto be able to support him in the future? This man has no vision at all. Another commenter replied, "Floor 2, you're saying that you haven't repaid the gratitude to your original man, and marrying such a woman who doesn't think of you but still misses her ex-husband for a lifetime is too tragic, isn't it?" Yet another responded, "Who says the female lead doesn't love him anymore? She's just afraid of betraying her husband. If you die, can you accept your wife being okay with her later husband?" And another countered, "If you can't accept it, don't ruin others." Using gratitude to blackmail the male lead into being a beast at the company without expecting a return or giving him real authority, and still helping to support his wife and son, what's that about? For the first time, the barrage showed support for me and my brother. For a long time, they've been complaining that my fate is too good, my abilities mediocre, and my personality unlikable. Yet I've become the male lead who captures the female lead's love, something to be grateful for. However, from beginning to end, no one asked if I was willing. Even a humble person like me wants to control my own destiny. I spoke calmly into the comments. "Makoto, after all these years, whether you think I'm pretending or not, did I ever treat you like my own son? Did you ever suffer even a little because of me? You just like to seek attention, pretending not to know and finding faults with me. From now on, you don't need to seek attention with me. I'm not your father, and you don't need to call me. If you have something to say, go home and cry to your mother." After finishing my morning routine, I went to pick up a tailored suit. Striding confidently, I walked into the Sue Group headquarters. Inside the office, Anna greeted me with shining eyes, saying, "George, you're finally here." The barrage exploded upon seeing Anna's elegant and graceful appearance. "What's going on? Did I miss an important plot twist where a more beautiful character appeared than the female lead? Holy cow, how does the male lead know her? I'm so jealous." I looked at Anna. Compared to 12 years ago, she had transformed completely. Her eyes sparkled with a gentle light, and a faint smile graced her lips. Anna was the younger sister of my grandmother's neighbor. When we were young, she was always obedient, following me around. My mother often invited me to her home for meals. After graduation, she started a business with her boyfriend, initially going smoothly. Later, I accidentally learned from my mother that her boyfriend had embezzled all the company's funds and fled, leaving her with a mountain of debt and a messy situation to deal with. In this moment of despair, I remembered the kindness she and her mother had shown us. Using some information and intelligence the barrage had mentioned, I provided her with all the intelligence and advice I had gathered, helping her turn the company around step by step, even multiplying the company's assets several times over. She was very grateful and wanted me to co-manage the company with her. However, I was concerned it might affect the plot, so I never agreed. Throughout my life, I've been unlucky. I could only contact her from the shadows, not wanting anyone to notice any secrecy. Back then, I wasn't ready to marry Willow yet. It felt like an invisible hand pushed me into the marriage, thrusting me into a relentless tide that might change the course of the story. Now, I faced it without fear. Chapter 8. Willow and I parted on bad terms. Seeing my bad mood, Anna sent me a message. "My cousin Martin has returned to the country with his son David. Today is the little guy's birthday. Will you join us to celebrate?" My eyes lit up. Anna's cousin, Martin, is a very loyal person. When I was young, many classmates called me a bastard, fatherless and motherless. He protected me and taught them a lesson. When I was starving in skin and bones, he would often bring snacks to school to share with me. I heard he was on vacation and had brought his child back for a trip. I brought delicate wooden carvings and several sets of children's clothes to the hotel. As soon as Martin saw me, he enthusiastically shook my hand and said, "Long time no see. You look much more energetic and robust now than before." Probably, love leads to affection for all. David loved the little fish wooden carving I gave him, playing with it without letting go. He was very close to me, sometimes handing me candies, other times sharing chocolates, just like how his father used to treat me before. When cutting the cake, David took the biggest piece and gave it to me, saying, "Dad said thanks to Uncle George, I was able to be born safely." When Martin's wife was pregnant with David, she had health issues, and doctors advised her to have an abortion. At that time, I had been taking care of Makoto for over a year. He was weak and sickly, so I would carry him to the hospital, meeting many famous doctors. Upon learning of Martin's situation, I recommended doctors to help save David. David, with a happy face, said, "I really like Uncle George. Can you be my godfather?" "No." Before I could answer, Anna replied first. David asked, "Why, Auntie? I saw many old photos of Uncle George at your house, and you've kept them so well. Are you trying to make him my uncle?" These days, Anna and I have grown very close. She packs the shrimp dumplings I love for breakfast, and I arrange dinners at the Sichuan restaurant she likes. During the 5 years with Willow, whether it's holidays or daily life, it's only me meeting her needs, carefully preparing gifts for her. While she never considers my feelings, it's as if all of this is something a man should do. This mutual concern feels great. We understand each other's intentions very clearly, Anna said. Without you, there wouldn't be the me I am today. However, I felt that confessing to another girl before fully getting over my previous relationship was irresponsible. So, I won't start a new relationship before that. Anna understood and said she was willing to wait for me. I patted David's head and said, "If you keep talking like that, Auntie won't buy you treats next time." David snorted and said, "That won't happen." David ate too much and couldn't digest, so midway, he asked me to take him out for a walk. Passing by the neighboring private room, we happened to encounter Willow and her son. Looking inside, I saw my parents there. That's right. Today is my mother's birthday. It's also the day Willow least wanted to see me. My mother asked, "George, what are you doing here?" I had already lost all patience with their family, I replied, speechlessly. "The restaurant is open for business. I came here to eat, of course." Chapter 9. Upon hearing my voice, my mother erupted in rage, shouting, "Persistent spirit, are you deliberately appearing in front of me, trying to make Willow reconcile with you?" I laughed heartily. "MS. Wong, you're overthinking it." She gritted her teeth and retorted, "Not even calling your mother. Giving birth to a piece of pork is better than giving birth to you. If it weren't for you, how could your brother have absorbed so little nutrition in the womb and left so early?" Her endless ranting went back and forth. My ears were about to develop calluses from all the complaining. My father stood up, glaring at me with authority, and scolded, "Apologize to your mother. She talks tough but is soft-hearted. Also, go and soothe Willow quickly. She's such a good girl that no one else could marry her. Stop acting foolish." Their emotions were complicated. They didn't want me to do well and overshadow their eldest son, yet they feared I might truly leave, causing a good daughter-in-law like Willow to fall into someone else's hands. Not only would they lose the connection with the Liu family, but the Wang family's business would also face significant risks. In the end, I was just a tool they used to keep Willow tethered. I sneered, "No need. I don't deserve such a good girl. Find another father for Makoto." Willow looked at me in shock. "George, what are you talking about? Let me find another man. Would you dare?" She seemed unable to believe that I, who used to revolve around her, could leave so abruptly. My mother shouted angrily, "Get out." She couldn't tolerate my rebellious attitude. Shifting her overweight body, she tried to push me away. I had no interest in staying. I grabbed David and turned to leave. However, Makoto, acting out of nowhere, loudly yelled, "Why are you holding Uncle's wooden carvings? He hasn't even made them for me this year." Over the years, I had developed a habit of carving wooden sculptures. During past New Year's, I would personally prepare one for both my mother and son. It was Makoto who, as a child, had seen my earlier works and clung to me for them. But last year, he said wooden carvings were outdated and didn't like them, throwing them straight into the trash. I was tired. I didn't want to invite more trouble upon myself. Instead, he questioned why I gave things to others and not to him. Seeing Makoto about to grab something, acting like a complete brat, I shielded David and said, "These things are mine. I can give them to whoever I want." Makoto looked utterly wronged. "I'm your son." Upon hearing this, my mother couldn't take it anymore. She rushed out, grabbed my collar, and cursed, "Are you instigating this behind my back? Victor is Makoto's real father. You bastard." I didn't tolerate her. Without waiting for her to make a move, I directly twisted her wrist, pushing her to the ground. However, she got up while cursing and tried to shove me again. David shouted, "Stop, don't touch my godfather." Makoto wouldn't relent, grabbing his wooden carving tightly. The four of us were tearing at each other. Nearby were the stairs. My mother, unstable in her stance and weighing about 180 pounds, was about to lose her balance. I grabbed David tightly, but Makoto didn't have such luck. Following his grandmother, like two meatballs, we rolled down the stairs with a loud crash. My mother was smashed, bones shattered, her face contorted in pain. Makoto was pinned beneath me, his back of the head bleeding profusely. Willow picked him up, and he looked at me with shock and grievance, asking, "You could have held me back. Why did you choose to save someone else? In the past, I would rather injure myself than let Makoto suffer any harm." I didn't spare him a single glance, only soothing the frightened David. Makoto, both physically and mentally in agony, couldn't bear it anymore and began to cry loudly. Chapter 10. I went to the hotel to visit Martin. David was very happy and told me that his mother was pregnant. He was about to have a brother and a sister. He asked, "Is that little brother who wanted to snatch my wooden carving doing okay?" I replied, "I don't know." Anna, who rarely showed her sharp tongue, said, "Just ignore him. That ungrateful brat who doesn't know gratitude," and almost pushed David down the stairs. After the accident, David told us that when Makoto was trying to grab the wooden carving, he deliberately pushed him toward the stairs. If it weren't for Makoto's arrogance, he might not have been dragged into trouble by his grandmother. He reaped what he sowed. As I was leaving, I bumped into Willow. She looked much more haggard, no longer radiant as before. That makes sense. With two injured people in the house, each one more troublesome than the last, life was bound to become chaotic. She asked, "George, why didn't you protect Makoto that day?" I replied calmly, "I had to protect David," she said. "But Makoto is your brother's son. You've raised him like the apple of your eye for 5 years." I was speechless. "So what?" Willow looked at me in shock and said, "You've been raising Makoto for 5 years. Whenever he had a scrape, you were so nervous you'd search the medicine cabinet and even carry him to the clinic to check on him." I rubbed my temples and replied, "People can change. I've divorced you, cut ties with the family, and Makoto has nothing to do with me anymore." Willow didn't believe that my heart had turned as hard as stone and insisted that I go into the hospital room to see. Makoto lay on the hospital bed, his arm hanging by his neck, his forehead still injured. His eyes were red as he looked at me, biting his lip and turning his head, waiting for me to comfort him as he used to. Seeing that I remained unmoved, Willow bit her lip and said, "George, don't be so cold. Don't stay indifferent when Makoto is so badly hurt." I was speechless. "What else?" she asked. "Can you care for him like you used to?" I replied. "No." I decisively refused without any hesitation. Their faces immediately darkened. Willow said, "You've been taking care of Makoto for 5 years. He calls you by your name every night. Can't you be less cruel?" I laughed. "Cruel? For 5 years of marriage, I haven't taken a single penny of your salary as unpaid labor. To put it nicely, it's for the greater good. To put it harshly, it's like working for your brother's son for nothing. Then what? My parents say I'm greedy and ambitious. He also sees me as an enemy. Makoto has said more than once that I'm not fit to be his father. His dad will always only be Victor. As you wish. I'm leaving. Why are you still entangled? During the standoff, my father pushed my mother's wheelchair into the room. She was more unfortunate, having injured her spine when she fell down the stairs, unable to stand for the rest of her life. Seeing me appear, my mother emotionally shouted, "George, you made me fall down the stairs. From now on, you must take responsibility for everything, eating, drinking, eliminating." During this period, my father was taking care of her hard, eager for someone to take over. My father said, "George, how can you be so selfish? Knowing how easily your mother gets upset, you still want to anger her. Life at home is tough. Stop playing around outside and come back to take care of your mother." A surge of inexplicable anger welled up inside me. I thought I could just treat them as a joke, but the anger was overwhelming. When I was in school, I was smarter than Victor and had better grades, but my parents could never see my strengths. They wouldn't allow me to surpass their eldest son, fearing it would upset him. Even now, they would rather hand over the company to outsiders instead of letting me have any part in it. Only when they needed someone to support them in old age did they remember I was their son. They were desperate for me to come home and be their slave. I looked down at my father, who was always so stern with me, and spoke word by word. "I married Willow as you requested, maintained the alliance between the Wang and Liu families, saved the company from bankruptcy, and secured investment when the company lacked funds. These are more than enough to repay your so-called costs of raising me. Compared to the efforts you put into my brother, it's just a drop in the ocean. From now on, I won't recognize you. Even if the company goes bankrupt and there's no source of income, don't expect me to pay any alimony. You can sue me all you want and see if I can manage not to pay." Mother-in-law Wang roared. "Get out. People like you are born without a conscience. You'll be struck by lightning sooner or later." I looked at her with a cold, icy gaze and said, "If you despise me so much, why did you even give birth to me?" She closed her eyes and didn't say anything, but I knew that hating someone doesn't require a reason. For example, despising my existence because Victor's poor health was caused by me absorbing too much nutrition in the womb, or thinking I'm despicable yet allowing me, with my father's support, to marry Willow to maintain the alliance between the two families. Chapter 11. I left this whole family behind. Those who don't love me aren't worth a second of my attention. It's strange to think about. I wonder if it's a case of losing something in the East only to gain something in the West. Anna says I'm very sensitive to numbers and market shifts, able to easily spot changes in any industry, and my investment eye has become more and more sharp. The investment market is extremely competitive, yet somehow, I always manage to place my money in the right places. I laughed self-deprecatingly and said, "Just luck, I guess." She shook her head. "Not at all." Anna looked at me seriously, her eyes sparkling like little stars. She tilted her head and said, "A person's vision is important, sure, but I think your biggest strength is your dedication. When you decide to research a certain field, you'll work overtime to dig up industry reports and policy analysis." Her words were like a small hammer, quietly breaking open the ice around my heart that had been frozen for so long. The day I married Willow, I thought a lot about how I wanted to be a good husband and father, not only taking care of Willow but also managing the company for Makoto, so that when he grew up, he could take over smoothly. For this, I worked like two people, learning many new things and getting various certifications, but in return, my parents mocked me coldly. Willow distanced herself from me, and Makoto threw sharp words my way. They never saw my value. "George, your brother is dead. He will always be our best son. Willow's true love. You will never compare." After the divorce, it felt like I had entered another dimension. Anna praised my investment sense. David admired the craftsmanship of my wood sculptures. Being recognized felt so good. It's like a warm current swirling in your heart, so comforting. My first time attending a high-profile cocktail party, I was wearing a custom-made suit and had my hair styled in a neat, retro side part. Anna linked her arm through mine and stared at me for a long time. Then she smiled and said, "George, you really look confident now. In the past, I would dress casually, not paying much attention to appearances, just doing whatever was convenient. But since my career started taking off, I not only focused on improving my professional knowledge but also started paying attention to my outward appearance. Every day, I'm on the path of self-improvement. I like the new me. It feels like an old sword, once sheathed, finally breaking free, its rust cleaned off, shining under the moonlight. I raised my glass, and people kept coming up to greet me, offering pleasantries and flattery. Anna leaned in and whispered in my ear, "George, you're a well-known investor now. Who would dare to underestimate you?" I replied, "Much thanks to Miss Sue's strong support." I smiled faintly. almost as if I were back in my childhood. She was about to poke me in the arm when a cold voice interrupted from behind. The voice asked, "What are you two doing?" I turned around and saw Willow. She looked me up and down, biting her lip as she said, "If Mom and Dad saw you now, they probably wouldn't even recognize you." I felt nothing at her appearance. Lately, as my investments increased and my reputation grew, the topics surrounding me multiplied. Willow had heard about it too. She sent me a message asking if it was true and testing whether I was willing to return and help with the Wong family company. I ignored her. After our divorce, Willow, not knowing how to run the company, had lost big deals to competitors multiple times. The company was badly hurt. Now, standing before me, she spoke pitifully. "George, I always thought the company made money because of the foundation your brother laid, but after you left, I realized that without you holding things together, the company couldn't survive. I'm sorry. George, could you please give me another chance?" I frowned, showing a look of disgust. At that moment, the familiar barrage of comments appeared before me. Strangely enough, after the divorce, it seemed that my insistence on not remarrying had made the comments disappear. The comments read, "Oh, the barrage is finally back. Is this due to the changes in the male lead story? I always thought the Wong and Liu families were too much, using George as a free labor force for his sister-in-law and the Wong family, and then accusing him of taking his brother's inheritance. They're absolutely heartless. This is even more interesting than the original plot. The male lead is so much more confident now, and clearly more capable." I was surprised. In the past, I had been somewhat timid, dependent on my family. Whether it was the people around me or the fans in the comments, they all urged me to please my parents, to get along with my sister-in-law. They advised me to be more patient. If I could endure, I would inherit the Wong family's business one day. Their words were always belittling me. But times have changed. Chapter 12. When a person becomes strong enough, all the people around them are good people. Suddenly, I remembered a saying, "There are no others outside, only yourself." Once, the barrage felt like a guide to fate, telling me I had to follow a predetermined path. But I refused to be a puppet, manipulated by others. If I want to change the world, to change my destiny, I first need to change myself. Looking back, I'm grateful to myself for sticking to learning and never giving up. I stood before Willow, looking directly into her hopeful eyes. I said, "I don't go back to old relationships. We have no more ties. Let's never meet again." She responded, "George, it's all my fault. I didn't see you as my husband, as the most important person in my life. It was me who didn't clear my feelings, thinking the person I loved the most was still your brother. After you left, I often couldn't sleep. Makoto misses you too. When Grandma wasn't looking, he'd cry while looking at your photo. Out of gratitude for your brother saving your life, could you give us, mother and son, another chance?" Willow tried to play the pity card, but unfortunately, she miscalculated. I said, "Don't talk about gratitude. I never intended to show you the truth, but since you've pushed me, let's see it together." I pulled out a video and opened it in front of Willow. The thug who had almost crippled me had been beaten up by Martin, who took revenge for me. But I was shocked to learn that the thug was a follower of Victor. To avoid further punishment, he spilled everything about what had happened back then. Victor knew he was dying and understood his brother was someone who knew how to repay kindness. He didn't want any other man to take his wife or see his son wasted. So he deliberately sought me out, along with a few of his brothers, to intimidate my brother. He had told them, "Make it convincing. Otherwise, my brother won't believe it." They trapped me in an alley, and just as they were about to strike my legs, Victor showed up to save me. To make sure I believed him, the thug handed over a locked notebook, saying, "Your brother originally told me to burn this, but I wanted to extort you, so I've been holding on to it until now." This notebook contained Victor's life story. He was smart, capable, and liked by everyone, but he had a broken body. Every day, Wong mother would whisper in his ear, claiming that my nutrients in the womb had been taken away by me, which led to him being sick for his whole life. Looking at George, who had no one to love him but was healthy, Victor felt an overwhelming sense of imbalance. He wrote, "George, why did you have to be born? You stole Mom and Dad's love, and you took away the healthy body that should have been mine. When I was beaten up at home by my cousins, it was all Victor's doing. The old clothes he sent me had been left with hospital waste for days before being sent to me. I was weak, but my immune system was strong." Victor was furious. Why, when he was suffering from injections in the hospital, was I able to walk calmly under the sun? When he learned his time was short, he tried to trap me for life with marriage and hatred. He knew that for someone who had never received much love, a little sweetness from others could make them give everything. The dramatic scene of entrusting his son to me on his deathbed was meant to show Willow how reluctant he was to part with his fatherly love and to show my parents how he could put the family first. Victor grasped Willow's hand and pleaded, "Wife, Promise me, Makoto is the only child you'll have in this life. I'll make sure my brother takes good care of him forever. Willow replied. Okay. If he truly wanted me to be happy, why would he force Willow to get an IUD? It was all calculated. He knew that sooner or later, someone would marry Willow, and I might also have my own children, to ensure that Makoto was recognized as the Wong family heir, and that Willow would only love Makoto as her child. He had no choice but to use me as a pawn. Only this way, in the future, everything would be left to his son. Chapter 13. The truth is so ugly. The barrage exploded, filled with angry comments. Oh my God, my faith has been shattered. I've been supporting this jerk and even scolding George. I'm so sorry. I've always said Victor was morally blackmailing, using kindness to seek revenge, but no one believed me. Thankfully, the male lead broke free from the script, didn't let his original family tie him down, and didn't get morally manipulated. He's walked into a new life. Willow's fingers turned white as she clutched the diary. She never imagined that her beloved husband, who had been so doting and loving, harbored such a dirty heart. Choking up, she said, George, it was Victor who wronged you. I know what I need to do now. Like a madwoman, Willow suddenly returned to the Liu family and severed all the business ties between the Liu and Wong families. As for my father's management skills, they were far from impressive. The professional CEO he hired to save money had already made a mess of the company. Now, the company was facing bankruptcy and liquidation. My father was finally panicked and called me, asking, George, is it because you refused to reconcile that Willow got so angry? Go and make peace with her if you have to. Neil, just don't let the family business fall apart under your father's watch. My biological mother, sitting in a wheelchair, rarely softened her tone and said, as long as you can get Willow to change her mind, I'll consider letting Makoto call you Dad. I couldn't help but laugh at their cluelessness. They had no idea I had become a rising star in the investment world, nor did they realize that Victor's true nature had already been exposed to the good wife. At the old Wong family mansion, my parents sat quietly on the sofa. Suddenly, my father exploded. It's all your fault. Knowing that Victor doesn't have long to live and that George is all that's left, you still wouldn't treat him better. Now, George has made more from one investment than you'll ever make in a lifetime. My mother, furious, retorted. He's my son. What's wrong with me yelling at him? I'll call him and threaten him. If he doesn't give us money, I'll report him. When the phone rang, it showed the message, the number you are dialing is no longer in service. That's right. I had blocked them for over 800 years. When they thought they could still cause a scene at the company, Anna had already predicted it. She had the security throw them out before they even got close. Honestly, I didn't care. I had more than enough evidence of their abuse against me. Soon, the Wong family went bankrupt. Wong mother couldn't even afford her medical bills, and the maid fled. Wong father, who was obsessed with saving face, couldn't bear the blow. He burned charcoal all night, dying of carbon monoxide poisoning. Wong mother was tough and survived, demanding that I send her to the best nursing home. What a fantasy. I rented a small room in the city's village and hired a nasty, aggressive housekeeper to feed her. Fate is a cycle. Parents want respect from their children, but they must first set an example. Otherwise, children will learn from their parents' actions and eventually face the consequences. After the diary incident, Willow spent every day getting drunk at bars. Several times, she almost ended up in a compromising situation. She kept sending me messages, claiming she'd been deceived by Victor and begged for another chance. It was so tiresome. I blocked her on countless numbers. Summer came. I put down my work and drove Anna to the countryside. Under the moonlight, I held a bouquet of golden wheat and walked up to her, kneeling on one knee. Anna, there are countless wheat stalks in the world, and in the autumn frost, wheat grains are planted in the barren, silent fields under the white snow, waiting to sprout. It endures rain, snow, and storms, seeing the vibrant spring with just one seed. There are thousands to harvest. Thanks to your company and appreciation, I've learned to face the cold and always keep a heart full of gratitude. I've rooted myself like the wheat in this world, growing a rich life. In the rest of my life, I want to walk this path with you. Will you accept this bouquet of wheat from me? I remembered a line from the movie Under the Tuscan Sun. Without a doubt, good things will always come, and when they come late, it's still a pleasant surprise. Anna, tears in her eyes, accepted the ring and the wheat. There is a kind of love that can keep you from ever being hurt, and that is the love you give to yourself. Over and over again, the bright moon shone, and the wind swept across the vast wilderness. The golden waves of wheat rolled on endlessly. Extra, Willow. Chapter 1. I never thought I would lose George completely. After the divorce, he became vibrant and shining. My ex-mother-in-law kept calling, harassing me, urging me to hire a lawyer to sue my son for abandoning the elderly. I scoffed. Everything has a cause and effect. If she hadn't committed so many sins in the first 20 years of her life, how could she have ended up with such a tragic old age? If I told people, The public's opinion would drown her out first. Seeing George and Anna's life getting better and better, I felt a twinge of jealousy. I let my assistant climb into my bed. He was also nice to Makoto. For that reason, I married him, but I didn't expect Makoto to resist him so much. He used to curse George, and now he curses the assistant. Is it because his biological father's genes weren't good enough? Chapter 2. Anna had a pair of twins, a boy and a girl. I was so angry. How did the Sue family have such good genes? I was like a rat in the sewers, secretly watching their family's life. George's investment acumen kept improving. He was about to become the richest man in City C. I was so foolish before. I never gave my heart to him. Otherwise, I would be the enviable wealthy lady now. Thinking about it, my heart ached for a moment. Then I heard the sound of Makoto arguing with his stepfather. He was so awful. I married a man with a tendency for domestic violence, and he clearly said he liked me for who I am when we got married. But now he demanded I hand over the financial power of the company to him every day. Chapter 3. Oh. The birth control and IUD report in the safe has been found. He wants a divorce. I remembered when George was around. He never knew about this. I told him I didn't want children, to wait until Makoto was a little older. He didn't look too happy, but in the end, he still went to tell Makoto a bedtime story. I was such a fool, missing out on such a good man. But unexpectedly, before the divorce, Makoto stabbed his stepfather in the stomach with a knife. He pointed to the rashes on his body and yelled, "You deliberately fed me something I'm allergic to, trying to kill me and steal my dad's fortune." The police investigated, and it turned out to be true. One ended up in the hospital, the other in juvenile detention. Everything turned to chaos. It was my own doing.